Dave Chappelle has a new Netflix special, and he commented on the rise of Donald Trump. So I want to show you here. This is both funny and interesting.
I must tell you, I've never had a problem with white people ever in my life. But full disclosure, the poor whites are my least favorites. We've gotten a lot of trouble out of them. And I'd never seen so many of them up close. I looked them right in their coal-smeared faces. And to my surprise, you know what I didn't see? I didn't see one deplorable face in that group. I saw some angry faces and some determined faces, but they felt like decent folk. No, they did. In fact, I'm not even lying, and I didn't sound fucked up, but I felt sorry for them. I know the game now. I know that rich white people call poor white people trash. And the only reason I know that is because I made so much money last year, the rich whites told me they say it at a cocktail party. And I'm not with that shit. And I stood with them in line like all of us Americans are required to do in a democracy. Nobody skips the line to vote. And I listened to them. I listened to them say naive, poor white people things. Man, Donald Trump's gonna go to Washington and he's gonna fight for us. I'm standing there thinking to my mind, you dumb motherfucker. You are poor. He's fighting for me.
Yeah, that's what we call class consciousness. So Dave Chappelle is pointing out the fact that those are the real dividing lines in our society. The oldest trick of elites, you've heard me mention this before, but the oldest trick of elites is the rich, the ultra-wealthy, the elites, the people who really control society, getting middle-class people and poor people to fight amongst themselves as they run out the back door with all the money. And, you know, it's something that's worked, which is why they keep going back to that playbook. You know, if you get a middle-class white family to hate poor black people who, you know, need food stamps in order to put food on the table, what you're doing is you're getting this middle-class family to hate people with no money and no power. And they view these poor people somehow as oppressors, people who are literally, by definition, left behind by the system more than anybody else. They look at them as the oppressors, like they're living on their high horse by collecting a tiny unemployment check, you know? And again, they do it over and over, the elites, because this playbook works. They go, okay, look, these lazy, poor, lazy minorities, whether it's blacks on welfare, the fucking illegal aliens coming in here and taking your jobs. You're worried about the illegal aliens coming in and taking the jobs. What about the fact that Trump just outsourced 93,000 jobs in his first year? Last year under Obama was 87,000. So don't get me wrong, it's a bipartisan problem. But, you know, Obama had run on, I'm not going to outsource jobs. Trump ran on, I'm not going to outsource jobs. They both outsourced a tremendous amount of jobs. So, but instead of having people look at the elites and go, this fucking bullshit, you just outsourced our goddamn jobs. No, fucking don't do that. Let's bring back tariffs. Let's do protectionism. Let's bring back unionization so people can make a decent wage. Instead of doing that, it's so easy for the elites to scapegoat. No, don't blame us. Don't blame us. Don't blame the corporations. Don't blame the billionaires. Don't blame the rigged political system, because we've now made it so that big money rules everything. Don't blame any of that. Look at the fucking brown-skinned people who came into your neighborhood. They're fucking everything up, aren't they? That's what they're fucking everything up. So you get a little mix of everything. You get middle-class white people hating poor everybody, white people, black people, brown people, doesn't matter. You get poor white people hating poor minorities. That playbook always works. And what Dave Chappelle is pointing out here, in a way that only Dave Chappelle can, is, listen, I'm a rich black dude. Trump is helping me out more than he's helping out poor whites in Kentucky. That's Dave's argument. And it's proven. I mean, the numbers show it. If you look at this recent tax plan, over a decade, Trump's tax bill raises taxes on every American that makes $75,000 a year or less. Hey, isn't it weird? All the tax cuts for regular people expire. They expire. Whereas the tax cuts for corporations, permanent. 35% rate to 21% rate. Giant cut. Permanent. A state tax cut. Permanent. So, class consciousness is the most important thing. And, I used to hear the argument all the time on Twitter. People would say, stop using the term middle class, because what that does is it allows for this divide between middle class people and poor people. It allows for that divide. You're opening up the door for people to say, the middle class is what concerns me. In other words, I don't care about the poor people. I care about the middle class. Well, then you can care about the middle class, but continue to shit on people who make even less. So, and I used to think that argument was kind of silly, because it just strikes me as like, PC language policing, like don't use the term middle class because it triggers me or something. But no, the more I think about it, the more I think it makes sense to just refer to middle class and poor people as workers. Because guess what? The policies that would help the middle class are the same policies that would help the poor. So why make a distinction? You see what I'm saying? Why make a distinction between this group and that group when this group just has a little bit more money, but the same policies would help them? Medicare for all would help both of them. Free college would help both of them. Increasing, wages through fighting with your union, having your union fight on behalf of you, that would help both of them. So there's no reason to make a distinction, because the real dividing lines in society are the donor class, the elite class, the corporate class, and everybody else. Those are the real divides. And Dave Chappelle's pointing that out. He's saying, look, it's the rich versus everybody else. Poor white people, poor black people, so-called middle-class white people, middle-class minorities. You're all in the same boat. And the same policies would help all of you. A New Deal would help all of you. Now, don't get me wrong. Are there some issues where race is pretty much the main factor and it's not really down to class? Well, yes. Like, for example, the disparities in the use of the death penalty. When black people and white people commit the same crimes, black people are far more likely to get the death penalty. When it comes to drug dealing, white people are far more likely to deal drugs than black people, but black people are far more likely to get arrested for dealing drugs. Same thing with drug use. Black people 4 times more likely to get arrested, even though they use drugs at a similar rate as white people. So there are certainly issues where race is the key factor, and that shouldn't be swept under the rug. Those need to be addressed, those issues. But at the same time, there are more things that connect us than divide us. So if the only focus is on identity politics, that's going to further those divides over time. And if we focus on class consciousness, and if we focus on working together because we're in the same fight, the same policies that help poor whites help poor blacks, the same policies that help middle class whites help middle class blacks and minorities across the board. If we focus on the fact that we're in the same boat, well, then we can get real change in society. And by the way, oftentimes, the solutions to those problems, where the key factor is race, are still universal solutions. So how do you fix, the problem of mandatory minimums being used overwhelmingly more against black people than white people when they commit the same crimes? Well, you get rid of mandatory minimums. That fixes that, doesn't it? For the death penalty, when it's used overwhelmingly more on black people than white people when they commit the same crime, the answer is get rid of the death penalty. That's the answer. So it's a universal answer to a problem that's an issue against minorities, where race is the key factor. So, listen, that's how if we increase class consciousness, and we realize that we're all fighting on the same team. If you're middle class, if you're poor, if you're black, if you're white, if you're brown, if you're anything under the sun, if you're not part of that corporate class and that donor class, and you're not part of that elite circle, well then we're in this together. Look, I would go as far even to say upper middle class people. You know, if somebody's a physician and they're a general practitioner, and you know, let's say they make $150,000 or $200,000 a year, even for that person, yes, their kid, they want to send them to college, but shit, it's going to cost a lot of money, and even they're going to have student loan debt and yada yada. Okay, well the answer's college for all. That's something that's going to help everybody, from upper middle class people to poor people. So the solutions are cut across all the other dividing lines, and that's kind of what Dave Chappelle's pointing out right there. He's saying, listen, you might think Trump is helping you if you're a poor white person, but bitch, he's helping me. I'm a rich black dude, and I see what's happening to my taxes. I see my taxes are going way down. You know? So that's something to keep in mind. It's something to keep in mind, and it's something we all need to realize we're in this together. And those policies would help all of us. Having strong unions that could negotiate for better benefits and wages, that helps everybody from upper middle class to poor. Having Medicare for all, free college, living wage, New Deal, ending the wars, that helps everybody. Poor people don't have to go fight and die. Middle class people don't have to keep footing the tax bill to send these poor people to go fight and die. It helps everybody. So class consciousness is on the rise, and it's time to push for the solutions that are solutions for everybody. Or, as they say, as the Labor Party says, for the many, not the few. So in other words, that's Jeremy Corbyn and the Labor Party in the UK saying, the elites are the problem. They are the problem. The donor class, the corporate class, they're the problem. But we're fighting for the many, not the few. So even middle class people, poor people, upper middle class people, the many, not the few. Those are the real dividing lines in society, and Dave Chappelle gets that.